Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Shri Huidas Thakur ki jai. Rem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadha Shri Vasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopakavata Sayam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavanam ki jai. Maturanam ki jai. Jagadasami ki jai. Yamunamai ki jai. Shrimati Lasi Devi ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrindi ki jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Gaur. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Gaur. Okay, so today we are continuing our reading of the Nectar of Devotion. So, Nana Shastra Vicharanai Kanipano Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarano Tribhuvane Vanjo Shananyakaro Radha Krishna Pajaravinda Vachana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. So we're continuing with our reading of the chapter entitled Further Considerations of Devotional Principles. So, Om Gana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. So, actually everyone's favorite principle here, partaking of prasadam. There's a specific statement in the Padma Purana that a person who honors the prasad and regularly eats it, not exactly in front of the deity, along with the charanamrita, the water offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, which is mixed with the seeds of the tulasi tree, immediately can achieve the results of pious activities which are obtained through 10,000 performances of sacrificial rites. Wow. In other words, just by eating you go back to Godhead. Pretty good. On the other hand, if you eat food not offered to Krishna, even if it is vegetarian food, what's the problem? Oh, you're eating sin. Music can be later. No. You're eating sin. So we're not specifically vegetarians, we're Krishnarians. So drinking charanamrita. Charanamrita is obtained in the morning while the Lord is being washed before dressing. Scented with perfumes and flowers, the water comes gliding down through his lotus feet and is collected and mixed with yogurt. In this way, the charanamrita not only becomes very tastefully flavored, but also has tremendous spiritual value. As described in the Padma Purana, even a person who has never been able to give in charity, who has never been able to perform a great sacrifice, who has never been able to study the Vedas, who has never been able to worship the Lord, or in other words, even one who has never done any pious activity will become eligible to enter the kingdom of God if he simply drinks the charanamrita. Wow, which is kept in the temple. In the temple it is a custom that the charanamrita be kept in a big pot. The devotees who come to visit and offer respects to the deity take 3 drops of Charanamrita very submissively and feel themselves happy in transcendental bliss. I remember in the early days of the movement, the devotees, because the Charanamrita had sugar and yogurt, they would fill their cups with Charanamrita. One time, we were with Prabhupada, the lady who was making the Charanamrita put salt in instead of sugar. So Prabhupada took it, and Prabhupada said, "It is salt." And Prabhupada said, "Who is responsible?" And then he finally found the lady, and the lady was so nervous she was giggling. You know, it's not that she was offensive, but she was just nervous because Prabhupada was very upset. So every morning when Prabhupada came to the temple to greet the deities, he would take some Charanamrita. So, smelling the incense and flowers offered to the deity. In the Hari Bhakti Shuddhaya, there's a statement about the incense which is offered in the temple. When the devotees smell the good fragrance of the incense which is offered to the deity, they thus become cured of the poisonous effects of material contamination, as much as one becomes cured of a snake bite by smelling the prescribed medicinal herbs. The explanation of this verse is that there is a herb found in the jungles which expert persons know how to use to revive the consciousness of one who was bitten by a snake. Simply by smelling that herb, one becomes immediate relief from the poisonous effects of the snake bite. The same example is applicable when a person comes to visit the temple and smells the incense offered to the deity. He is cured at that time from all his material contamination. Any devotee coming into the temple should always offer something to the deity, fruit, flowers, incense, etc. If one cannot offer anything in cash, something else must be offered. In India, the system is that all the ladies and gentlemen who come in the morning to visit the temple bring so many things, even one morsel of rice or one morsel of flour can be offered. It is a regulative principle that one should not go to see a saintly person or the deity in the temple without any offering. The offering may be very humble, or it may be priceless. Even a flower, a little fruit, a little water, whatever is possible, must be offered. So when a devotee comes to offer something to the deity in the morning, he is sure to smell the good fragrance of the incense, and then at once he will become cleansed of the poisonous effect of material existence. It is stated in the Tantra Shastra, if the smell of the garland which was offered to the deity in the temple enters into a person's nostrils, immediately his bondage to sinful activities becomes cleared. And even if one has no sinful activities, simply by smelling such remnants of flowers, one can advance from Mayavadi, impersonalist, to devotee. There are several instances of this, a prime one being the advancement of the 4 Kumaras. They were impersonalist Mayavadis, but after smelling the remnants of flowers and incense in the temple, they turned to become devotees. From the above verse, it appears that the Mayavadis or impersonalists are more or less contaminated. They are not pure. It is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, one who has not washed off the reactions of sinful activities cannot be a pure devotee. A pure devotee has no more doubts about the supremacy of the personality of Godhead, and thus he engages himself in Krishna consciousness and devotional service. A similar statement is in the Gosha Samhita. Just to purify the impurities of our nostrils, we should try to smell the remnants of flowers offered to Krishna in the temple. Next one. Touching the deity. In the Vishnu Dhammottara, there is a statement about touching the lotus feet of the Lord. It is said only a person who is initiated as a Vaishnava and is executing devotional service in Krishna consciousness has the right to touch the body of the deity. In India, there was agitation during Gandhi's political movement because the low-born classes of men like street sweepers and chandalas are prohibited according to the Vedic system from entering the temple. Due to their unclean habits, they are prohibited, but at the same time they are given other facilities so they may be elevated to the highest grade of devotional service by association with pure devotees. A man born in any family is not barred, but he must be cleansed. That cleansing process must be adopted. Gandhi wanted to make them clean simply by stamping them with a fictitious name, Harijana, children of God. So there was a great tug of war between the temple owners and Gandhi's followers. Of course, at the same time, they should prohibit people from coming to the temple because they're of a certain caste or born in a certain family. But someone must at least be clean and be a devotee. Just like in some temples, actually it's interesting, in Tirupati you have to sign, at least I had to sign something saying that I was a Hindu to get in. Does anyone remember that? I had to sign, you are a Hindu. Because I didn't even know what a Hindu is. So, in some temples we're not even allowed to go into. No, I'm not. And that, like the Jagannath Temple in Sakshi Gopal, they prohibit it. So, at the same time, it's not that we just rubber stamp people, children of God. Or Harijana means, people of God, actually, literally, in spite of so many low-class activities. And, what was I going to say about the temples? Yeah, actually there was but also the temples should be open to everyone. And some of the temples, there's this interesting story recently. The Indian government passed a regulation that one temple they had to allow women in the temple. You remember that story? And they hadn't allowed women in the temple since eons ago. And people rioted. But they should let the ladies, because the ladies are also Vaishnavis. And then, because the ladies all formed a line, like, I think it was several kilometers long or something like that, and the men were rioting, and, that's crazy. Everyone has a right to go in the temple, as long as they're devotees and as long as they're clean. But Prabhupada had this bias against a lot of things that Gandhi did. Anyway, we have to be careful when we talk about it, because some people are very attached to Gandhi. Another thing Prabhupada said about Gandhi was about the label Mahatma. Prabhupada said, Mahatma is in reference to the Bhagavad Gita verse, Mahatma nastu mam partha daivam prakriti mashrata, that a Mahatma is always worshipping Krishna. And Gandhi, Prabhupada had many negative comments about Gandhi. He said also, Gandhi said he didn't even believe that there was a Krishna. He read the Bhagavad Gita, and he used the Bhagavad Gita to propagate his own particular philosophy, which was nonviolence. But he said, I don't believe that there was ever anyone named Krishna. So, anyway, is that a Mahatma or not? You decide. But anyway, the present law is the law of all. And actually, Prabhupada wrote a letter to Gandhi, like 2 weeks before Gandhi was shot. He said, now is the time to preach Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise you will meet the same end as, and he mentioned Mussolini and other people. And guess what? It happened. But anyway, the present law is the law of all Scripture, that if anyone is purified, he can enter into the temple. Actually, that is the position. Only one who is properly initiated, who is properly following the rules and regulations, can enter and touch the deity, not all. And one who touches the body of the deity following such regulative principles is immediately delivered from the contamination of material sins, and all of his desires become fulfilled without delay. Oh, let me on the altar today. I should go on the altar with a whole list of things that I'd like. All the desires? All right. I'm going to use the computer printer upstairs before I do my deity worship this morning. Actually, I'll tell you an interesting story. And this lady's probably listening. That this one girl wanted a husband. And this is a true story. It's actually one of my disciples. And she wanted a husband. She wrote a letter to the deity. He said, my dear Radhagolokananda, please, where is my husband? And then shortly after that, the husband showed up. So it works. They actually used to leave letters on the altar to the deity about what she wanted. You can do that. Why not? Husband, wife, whatever. Seeing the deity. In the Varaha Purana, there's a statement praising the scene of the deity of Sri Krishna in the temple. A devotee says there, my dear Vasundhara, any person who goes to Vrindavan and sees the deity of Govinda Deva is free from the courthouse of Yamraj and is allowed to enter into the highest planetary system in which reside the demigods. This means that even an ordinary person who goes to Vrindavan out of inquisitiveness and by chance sees the temple, especially that of Govinda Deva, even if he is not elevated to the spiritual kingdom, is still assured promotion to the higher planetary systems. This means that simply by visiting the deity of Govinda in Vrindavan, one becomes highly elevated in pious life. Wow. But what's the problem of visiting the deity in Govinda in Vrindavan? Does anyone know? Govinda's not in Vrindavan anymore.
Jaipur.
He's in Jaipur. It's interesting. Most of the deities, except for Radha-Raman, of course, were taken out of Vrindavan because the Muslims attacked. And first the deities went to Radhakund. It's interesting. I tell the devotees the story when I take the devotees on the parikrama. First the deities went to Radhakund, and they were protected at Radhakund. And then, guess what happened? The Muslims came to Radhakund. So the devotees took the deities and took them to Udaipur, Jaipur, and other places for protection. And then the devotees in Radhakund felt so much separation from these deities that they established Pratibhu deities, just like you have in Vrindavan. Pratibhu means like replica deities, which are actually non-different than the original deities in Radhakund. So if you go to Radhakund, you got Radha Govindaji there, you got Radha Raman, you got Radha Gopinath. Amazing. And so these temples in Radhakund are non-different from the temples in Vrindavan. And it's not as crowded as Vrindavan is either. So, observing Arti and celebrations of the Lord. In the Skanda Purana, there's the following description of the result of seeing Arti worship of the deity. If someone sees the face of the Lord while Arti is going on, he can be relieved of all sinful reactions coming from many, many thousands and millions of years past. He is even excused from the killing of a Brahmin or similar prohibited activities. As we have already explained, there are different ceremonies to be observed, such as the birthday of Krishna, the birthday of Lord Ramachandra. You celebrate that here? That's good. The birthday of some prominent, actually in Sydney they didn't celebrate. Yeah, so much. Anyway, so they were saying, oh, we're just worshipping Krishna. The ceremony of Julan Yatra, you have that here?
Yes.
With the Lord sitting on his swing. And Dola Yatra. Dola Yatra. The Lord's activities in the month of March. In all festivals, the Lord is seated on a car, and the car moves through different streets of the city, not an automobile car. So that people may take advantage. Talking about a palanquin of visiting the Lord. In the Bhavishya Purana it is said, in such a ceremony, if even a Chandala, dog-eater, simply out of curiosity, sees the Lord on the cart, he becomes counted as one of the associates of Vishnu. Wow. In the Agni Purana it is stated, any person who in gladness sees the worship of the deity in the temple will obtain the results of Kriya Yoga, which are described in the Pancharatra scripture. Kriya Yoga is the system of practice much like practical devotional service, but is especially meant for the mystic yogis. In other words, by this gradual process, the mystic yogis are eventually elevated to the devotional service of the Lord. So in that chapter, and we'll continue, chapter 10, techniques of hearing and remembering. Hearing. The beginning of Krishna consciousness in devotional service is hearing, in Sanskrit called Shravanam. All people should be given the chance to come and join devotional parties so they may hear. This hearing is very important for progressing in Krishna consciousness. When one links his ears to give oral reception to the transcendental vibrations, he can quickly become purified and cleansed in the heart. Lord Chaitanya has affirmed that this hearing is very important. It cleanses the heart of the contaminated soul so that he becomes quickly qualified to enter into devotional service and understand Krishna consciousness. What's that verse? Lord Chaitanya's verse? Yeah, what's the rest of it? Vadajivanam. What's that? Nandam Buddhi Varada. So, that verse states that the heart becomes cleansed. What does it mean the heart becomes cleansed? It means, what? Yeah, but it basically means that the subtle body of the living entity has had impressions. The way I explain it is that just like we have so many impressions throughout this lifetime, and based upon those samskaras, they're called samskaras actually, based upon those samskaras, we act in a certain way. So we've had impressions from past lifetimes, just like if one is born and then all of a sudden they have some sort of phobia. You know what phobia is? Like last night, I think we were talking about dog phobia. What was the technical name of that?
Cynophobia.
What?
Cynophobia.
Cynophobia. So, for no reason whatsoever, that means the last life we had that impression. So we've been, atmasnapanam means a bath. Imagine going out for many lifetimes and never taking a bath. I mean, it smells pretty bad. So the soul has been going on for many lifetimes in this world and going through all these experiences, different species of life, and he hasn't taken a bath. So the Cheto Darpanam, Atma Snapanam, means it's a bath for the self. So it cleanses all these past impressions. It's the best samskara. And then you're able to, Vidyavadu Jivanam, it's the life. Actually, Prabhupada translates it in another place, it's the wife of all transcendental knowledge. But it's a life, Vidyavadu Jivanam. The Chaitanya Charitamrita is translated like that. Anandam Buddhivardhanam. Anandam, Buddhivardhanam. Unlimited knowledge, unlimited ecstasy. Pratipadam, pati. So at every step, wow. Sarvatmasnapanam. Param Vijayate. All glories to Sankirtan. Anyway, so that's why it's so important. In the Garuda Purana, the stress on hearing is expressed very nicely. It is said there, the state of conditional life in the material world is just like that of a man lying unconscious having been bitten by a snake. This is because both such unconscious states can be ended by the sound of a mantra. When a man is snake bitten, he does not die immediately, but first becomes unconscious and remains in a comatose condition. Anyone who is in the material world is also sleeping, as he is ignorant of his actual self or his actual duty and his relationship with God. So materialistic life means that one is bitten by the snake of Maya, illusion, and thus, without any Krishna consciousness, is almost dead. Now the so-called dead man bitten by a snake can be brought back in life to life by the chanting of some mantra. There are expert chanters of these mantras who can perform this feat. Similarly, one can be brought back into Krishna consciousness from the deadly, unconscious state of material life by hearing of the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Actually, it reminds me of a pastime told by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which actually has no relationship to this, but it reminds me of this when Krishna became a snake charmer. That he wanted to meet with Radharani and he was prohibited from doing so. So Radharani made believe that she was bitten by a snake. And then Krishna came as like a female snake charmer. And he came into her room and he was having a conversation with the snake. Anyway. So in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 29th chapter, verse 40, the importance of hearing of the pastimes of the Lord is stated by Shukadev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. My dear king, one should stay at a place where the great acharyas, holy teachers, speak about the transcendental activities of the Lord, and one should give oral reception to the nectarian river flowing from the moon-like faces of such great personalities. If someone eagerly continues to hear such transcendental sounds, then certainly he will be freed from all material hunger, thirst, fear, and lamentation, as well as all illusions of material existence. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommended this process of hearing as a means of self-realization in the present age of Kali. In this age, it is very difficult to follow thoroughly the regulated principles and studies of the Vedas which were formerly recommended. However, if one gives oral reception to the sound vibrated by great devotees and acharyas, that alone will give him relief from all material contamination. Therefore, it is the recommendation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that one should simply hear from authorities who are actually devotees of the Lord. Hearing from professional men will not help. If we hear from those who are actually self-realized, then the nectarian rivers, like those which are flowing on the moon planet, will flow into our ears. This is the metaphor used in the above verse. Of course, that's very similar to what Lord Kapiladev states in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Satam Prasangam, Mama Virya Samvado Bhavanti Vritkarna Rasayana Kata, Tajoshanadashu Apavarga Vartmani Shraddha, Ratir Bhakti Nukrameshati. He says, Satam Prasangam, that the Sat, the devotees, they meet, and they have association. And what do? They hear about Mama Virya Samvidaha, that talks about Krishna's heroic activities. Mama Virya means, that means heroic, talks about Krishna. And then Bhavanti Ritkarna Rasayana Kata. Then that transcendental sound, this is the same thing that's mentioned here. Ritkarna will go from the ear, Prabhupada describes it as a channel between the ear and the heart. And so that means when you hear something, it actually affects the subtle body and the soul almost immediately. Seeing is not as effective. Hearing is much more effective. So, Bhavanti Ritkarna, Rasayana Kata, and that is very like a tasty medicine, like Brahmi Rasayan, Jiva Rasayan. These are Ayurvedic medicines. And then Joshanadashu, Apavarga Vartmi, he proceeds on the path of Apavarga. Apavarga is the opposite of Pavarga. Pavarga means, basically, as it is analyzed by the acharyas, Pama, the Parishrama, which means foaming at the mouth, hard work. Just like sometimes people ask me, how do I have time for Krishna consciousness? I'm foaming. Yes, I foaming in the mouth. But I'm working hard, I have a mortgage to pay. And then I say, get a tiny house. We saw one the other day, it was very nice. So that's why, what is it? Ajahara prayasascha pajalpa nimagraha. You know, prayasas, one should not over-endeavor for something. If one over-endeavors, like takes out too big a mortgage and gets too big a house and has no time for bhakti, that's over-endeavor. Of course, for Krishna, we can endeavor like crazy. So basically, one should structure their lives to be able to hear properly about Krishna. Sabhavanti Rikarna Rasayana Kata. Tajoshanarasha Apavarga Vartmani, one proceeds on the path of liberation, and then goes through the various stages. Shraddha, Ratir, Bhakti, and Ukramishati. They follow one after the other. First there's Shraddha, Ratir, of course there's different stages in between, but like a do, Shraddha Tata, Sadhu Sango Ta, Bhajana Kriya. Shraddha, Ratir means one gets a taste, and then Bhakti, Anukramishati, follows one after the other. So, actually, the Bhagavatam states that if one Shrama Evahi Kevalam, not Padiyad Yadi Ratim Shrama Eva Kevalam, that if one is not getting a taste for hearing and chanting, then he's wasting his time. Then it's all wasted time, isn't it? Shrama Evahi Kevalam. So, that's the point. Hearing and chanting about Krishna. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, a materialistic person can give up his material hankerings only by becoming situated in Krishna consciousness. Unless one finds a superior engagement, he will not be able to give up his inferior engagement. In the material world, everyone is engaged in the illusory activities of the inferior energy, but when one is given the opportunity to relish the activities of the superior energy performed by Krishna, then he forgets all his lesser pleasures. When Krishna speaks on the battlefield of Kurukshetra to the materialistic person, it appears that this is simply talk between two friends. Interesting friends, but actually is a river of nectar flowing down from the mouth of Sri Krishna. Arjuna gave oral reception to such vibrations, and thus he became freed from all the illusions of material problems. Just like sometimes people ask me, how do I get free from hankerings and lamentation and attachment? And I say, don't worry about it. Just become attached to Krishna. So that's the problem with the Buddhist philosophy, the Four Noble Truths, that the material world is suffering. We believe in that. Suffering is caused by attachment. Give up the attachment, and you give up the suffering. And yes, we accept that. And of course they talk about the Eightfold Path and everything like that, right living, right thinking, etc. But they never get into the point of what is right living, right thinking. They just talk about it and they don't get detached from the material world. You have to be attached to something. You have to serve something or someone. We are servants, like Prabhupada said, that if we're not serving Krishna, we're serving the illusory energy. And Prabhupada gave the example of in the prison house, people are serving the government, but involuntarily. If you don't pay your taxes, especially in Fiji now, which has Vishwanath, Vishwanath? He's in charge of the tax. All the devotees get nervous when they see Vishwanath. Please accept my obeisance. He's cracking the whip, so to speak, on everybody in Fiji. Yeah, even people come up to me. Some of my disciples who do business, they come up to me and say, "Can't you talk to Vishwanath?" So, anyway, so the way to get detached is to be attached to Krishna. That's the main thing. So anyway, so in the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd chapter, verse 15 is stated, a person who desires unalloyed devotional service to Lord Krishna, who is praised by transcendental sound vibrations, should always hear about his glorification and transcendental qualities. This will surely kill all kinds of inauspiciousness in the heart. So, okay, we still have time. Expecting the Lord's mercy. This is interesting. In the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse 8, it is said, my dear Lord, any person who is constantly awaiting your causeless mercy to be bestowed upon him and who goes on suffering the resultant actions of his past misdeeds, offering you his respectful obeisances from the core of the heart, is surely eligible to become liberated, for it has become his rightful claim. Did anyone know the Sanskrit for that verse? Tate tatena kampam, sushimikshmana bunjanavatma kritam vipakam. Ridvag vapurvir vedanam namaste, jiveta yo muktipade sadayavak. It's an important verse. Exactly what's stated here. Then Prabhupada is quoting that particular verse. That one who tolerates any sort of reaction that is coming, and he actually accepts that he's responsible for it, and goes on serving Krishna with Hridvag Bapurvir, with his heart, with his words, with his body. Then he is the, as says, it becomes his rightful claim, or rightful inheritance. This statement of Srimad Bhagavatam should be the guide of all devotees. Now that's really an absolute statement that Prabhupada's making, the guide of all devotees. A devotee should not expect immediate relief from the reactions of his past misdeeds. So what does that mean? Previously, I said that even your prarabdha karma is gone, remember? Previous class. So, why can't we expect immediate relief? Because, several reasons, Prabhupada describes, it's like a fan that you unplug. The fan has some momentum, and it keeps spinning. But even apart from that, Krishna gives you a token reaction. It's not karma anymore. He gives you a token. Just like if you commit some crime and you confess and you promise to rectify yourself, sometimes the judge will give you a token punishment. It means some punishment. Instead of going to jail for 10 years, you go to jail for 2 weeks. So like Prabhupada said, one time they got in an automobile accident, and Prabhupada said, we were meant to die, but Krishna just gave us a small amount of punishment. Of course, Prabhupada had no token reaction or any other type of reaction. So in other words, it's Krishna giving you a little bit of the karma that you had previously. So if you're suffering now, you can think, boy, the karma I had before must have been really big. I'm really in pain now. No, of course, the devotee should also take some remedial measure. It's not that, let's say you get some sickness or disease, and you say, this is just a token reaction to my past sinful activities, I'm not going to the doctor. But you try your best to alleviate it. At the same time, you just understand it's Krishna. No conditioned soul is freed from such reactionary experiences because material existence means continued suffering or enjoyment of past activities. If one has finished his material activities, then there is no more birth. This is only possible when one begins Krishna conscious activities because such activities do not produce reaction. What's that called in Sanskrit? Activities that don't produce akarma. Activities that produce a good reaction are called what? Karma. And activities that produce a bad reaction are called vikarma. Therefore, as soon as one becomes perfect in Krishna conscious activities, he is not going to take birth again in the material world. A devotee who is not perfectly freed from the resultant actions should therefore continue to act in Krishna consciousness seriously, even though there may be so many impediments. I remember I joined the movement, and the first day my sports car got smashed. And the devotee said, that's a token reaction. Anyway, I didn't like that token reaction. When such impediments arise, one should simply think of Krishna and expect his mercy. That is the only solace. If the devotee passes his days in that spirit, it is certain that he is going to be promoted to the abode of the Lord. By such activities, he earns his claim to enter into the kingdom of God. The exact word used in this verse is Dayavak. Dayavak refers to his sons becoming the lawful inheritor of the property of the Father. In a similar way, a pure devotee was prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulations in executing Krishna conscious duties, becomes lawfully qualified to enter into the transcendental abode. Remembrance. In some way or other, if someone establishes in his mind his continuous relationship with Krishna, this relationship is called remembrance. About this remembrance, there's a nice statement in the Vishnu Purana where it is said, simply, by remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all living entities become eligible for all kinds of auspiciousness. Therefore, let me always remember the Lord, who is unborn and eternal. In the Padma Purana, the same remembrance is explained as follows. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, Krishna, because if someone remembers him, either at the time of death or during his span of life, he becomes freed from all sinful reactions. So how do we remember Krishna now, that we're not pure and can't think of Krishna all day long? Anyone have any idea? Yeah, that's the process, but how do we remember? By seva. There's an interesting verse in the Gita. Brahmarpanam Brahmahave Brahmangdo Brahmanohutam Brahmatena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhinam. That means if one is actually absorbed in his service, and of course there's a whole group of people who chant that mantra.
Yeah.
Anyway, Brahma Kumaris, I know that. So anyway, but we're not advocates of their particular organization. But that verse is very important, that if one is absorbed in serving Krishna, thinks of one's service, like Prabhupada was thinking of the Bombay temple, opening up the temple, that is the same as thinking of Krishna. So we can actually be absorbed in our service and be thinking of Krishna. And if you're thinking of your service at the time of death, it's not that you, let's say if you're thinking of driving a car for Krishna or something, or whatever. Like one time, a devotee was driving his car and chanting with his beads or something. Prabhupada said, just concentrate on what you're doing. Don't think that driving a car is Maya. So if you concentrate on driving a car for Krishna, you're doing something for Krishna with a car, obviously, then that's the same as thinking of Krishna. You're absorbed in it. And Prabhupada said in the Nectar of Instruction, he defined a Mahabhagavat, Uttamadhikari, as someone, first of all, who never falls down, and secondly, one who is always thinking of spreading the Krishna conscious movement. So in other words, that's the meditation, like Prabhupada was meditating. Like that. Okay. So, any questions about that? Actually, it's almost time. Any questions? Comments?
Today's Gadadhar's appearance day.
Who?
Gadadhar.
Oh my God. You should have told me beforehand. We could have given a whole class about it. Okay. We'll speak a little bit. So, Gadadhar Pandit, of course. Wow. Very auspicious day. Also take initiation. So, Gadadhar Pandit, of course, is Srimati Radharani in the Panchatattva. We have the Panchatattva. Tattva means the 5 different categories, but eternal categories. The word tat basically means that, but that which continues to exist according to Bhagavad Gita, nasato vijate bhavo, nabhavo vijate sataha, ubayor api drishtas, 20os tattva darshavihi. That those things which have continued to exist are real. Those things which don't continue to exist are unreal. So you have the 5 categories of things that are real, or not just things, people. You have Vishnu Tattva, which is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Advaita Acharya, and Lord Nityananda. You have Jiva Tattva, Srivas Thakur, and you have Shakti Tattva, which is Gadadhar Pandit Goswami. So Gadadhar Pandit Goswami was actually a friend of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was a classmate. And he would be very upset. He was very upset with Lord Chaitanya because Lord Chaitanya was just interested in Nyaya when he was very young. And then, actually, one time, he told Gadadhar Pandit that in the future I'll be such a great devotee that even Lord Brahma and the demigods and Lord Shiva will offer obeisances to me. And Gadadhar thought, this guy's Maya. It was true. Anyway, and so it's interesting that Gadadhar Pandit Goswami, even though we consider him to be, he is, an incarnation of Srimati Radharani, his mood is slightly different than that of Srimati Radharani. He has a submissive mood in relationship to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And some of the acharyas explain that that's because Lord Chaitanya is in the mood of Radharani, and he stole that mood. That's a little esoteric explanation. So he always wanted to remain by Lord Chaitanya's side, and when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Jagannath Puri, he also went with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in Jagannath Puri, Gadadhar Pandit Goswami took the vow of Kshetra Sannyas. Kshetra Sannyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, is the preferable vow that one should take of sannyas, which means one remains in a holy place with one's family, because Gadadhar Pandit Goswami was never married, but one can remain in a holy place with one's family and serves the deities or preaches Krishna consciousness. So Gadadhar Pandit remained with Lord Chaitanya. However, Lord Chaitanya didn't always remain in Jagannath Puri, so there's this interesting story when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was leaving Jagannath Puri to go to Vrindavan, and Gadadhar Pandit Goswami wanted to follow him. And he actually followed him part of the way out of Jagannath Puri. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, basically, what about your vow, Kshetra Sannyas? And Gadadhar Pandit Goswami said, let my vow, Kshetra Sannyas, go to hell. And Lord Chaitanya protected his vow, and he sent him back because he was serving the deity of Tota Gopinath there. Tota Gopinath was a very unusual deity because the Tota Gopinath deity is sitting down rather than standing up, like most Krishna deities stand up. So the reason he's sitting down is that originally he was standing up, and then Gadadhar Pandit Goswami was getting old, and he could no longer take care of the deity because the deity was too big. He's actually quite a big deity. And then one morning he opened up the deity doors, or the curtains, and he saw that Krishna was sitting down rather than standing up. And that deity was the same deity that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered into when he ended his manifest pastimes. In fact, if you go there and you give 100 rupees per person. Did they make you do that when you went there? It's actually, that's the price. Maybe they went inflation or something. Then the pujari will actually pull up the cloth, and you can see the golden streak on the thigh of the deity where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered, and also Gadadhar Pandit Goswami entered the deity there too. So, anyway, so he was Lord Chaitanya's eternal or continual associate. And maybe we'll speak more at the initiation about Gadadhar Pandit Goswami. Should have reminded me. I would have prepared more information. Okay. Any other questions or comments about anything we spoke about this morning, or anything we read about this morning? Questions, comments, arguments?
What's the difference between remembrance and meditation?
That's a very interesting question. Well, remembrance, I think meditation is a deeper form of remembrance. Just like I remember your name, Nandbraj. That's remembrance. But meditation would be, if I meditate on you. If I meditate, yes, Nandabraj. He has silver hair. Not really. So he has silver hair, and his daughter just had a baby, and he's the father-in-law of Vishwanath. In fact, I think meditation would be more like you actually picture the person or the pastime or something like that. Like, I could say, I remember Krishna's pastime of lifting up Govardhan Hill. Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill with the pinky of his left hand. But then meditation would be, I mean, not necessarily that you have to close your eyes, but meditation would be you visualize that particular thing. Not necessarily only with the eyes, but with the ears too. You know, you would actually be there. You visualize, and that's why we say visualize, use your imagination sometimes in Krishna consciousness. When you're reading these pastimes, then you actually use your brain, and you. That's the advantage of reading over watching a video. Like if you watch a video of these different pastimes, which is nice too, you're not really using your brain. Actually, you watch too many videos, you become brain dead after a while. Isn't it? The interesting thing, see, I was brought up in a reading culture. And you young people are brought up in a mobile phone culture. Everything's on the phone. And, you know, it's more of a visual culture. And the interesting thing about a reading culture, you actually develop your power of imagination, of meditation. And I remember reading books. I mean, all sorts of nonsense books I read. Like, particularly, I used to read science fiction books. Anyway, it's not important. And I would actually see what I was, as I was reading, I would see those things. So that's meditation. And when you just like watch a movie, it's not exactly the same. You don't really go so deep. It's not as deep an experience as far as my experience is concerned. So anyway, so meditation means you just like try to use your imagination or visualization or auditory memory or whatever, and you're basically there.
Maharaj, could we say constant remembrance is meditation?
Not necessarily. I would say meditation is something different. Meditation is far deeper.
Deep absorption.
Yeah, but I would say you have to include the element of visualization in there to be meditation. I mean, I can constantly remember something. You know, I can constantly remember my name, hopefully. Or I remember I'm in Auckland, you know. But I'm not meditating on it. You understand?
Yeah, absorbed in the past times. Or
You know, I constantly, for example, I constantly remember that we have to eat at so many places today. But if I meditate on it, I'll start to get nauseous.
Is it the same like hearing and listening?
Hearing, well, listening means usually in one ear, out another ear. Hearing means, you know, basically to hear submissively. And so I think meditation is something far deeper than just remembering. That you're there, you're meditating. I mean, for example, I remember Govardhan, you know, whatever, right now. And then if I close my eyes, I can just, you know, picture myself going around Govardhan. That's meditation. So there is a difference. There's a difference. Meditation is basically, you're there. You know, yeah. So, then answer the question?
One more question. You brought up this question about devotees having proper reaction.
Yeah.
So, we had a family program of passing of a devotee. The family is not very Krishna conscious, but they were asking, my father was so devoted, he did so much devotion in Namasa.
Yeah.
How is that he passed away? He had so much problems when passing away.
Well, I think everybody
So,
passes away. Whether you have
they
token
think
reaction.
that if you are devotee, you shouldn't have any problem when you're passing away. So how do you explain to them? I mean, from devotee point of view, we can understand. But
Yeah, I mean, even if it's not a token reaction, the material energy is made in such a way, like with Prabhupada, that, you know, we just, you know, we're going to have trouble with the body. I mean, even if it's not a token reaction, that's just, like if you have a car, it's made in such a way that the car is going to break down eventually. So, I mean, another way you can explain it to those people, rather than get into that, is they say that Krishna is glorifying his devotee. by showing the devotee's determination to be Krishna conscious in spite of all those difficulties. You know, this is like heroic. I mean, why did Arjuna have to go through all these different difficulties? Why did the Pandavas have to go through all the difficulties? And that glorifies them. It's a struggle. And the struggle is the purification. But they won't appreciate that. You know, just like, you know, sometimes people may criticize that, even devotees, you know, criticize, say, well, Tamal Krishna Maharaj passed away in an automobile accident. So why did that happen? And they say, is that auspicious? Well, the point is, any way you pass away, can you say one way is auspicious, another way is inauspicious? It's auspicious to pass away remembering Krishna. It's auspicious to pass away in the holy Dham. And there's nothing wrong with an automobile accident. No, sorry. I mean, because that's a quick way of going. I mean, which is worse, like passing away in the hospital with tubes all over you, you know, for 5 years, or passing away quickly? I think it's better to pass away quickly. Isn't it? So people will find any excuse. The point I'm making is people will find any excuse to criticize. And I think that that's really the essence. They're looking for an excuse to criticize. Because everybody has to suffer in this world. I mean, where's the person, pure devotee, whatever, who hasn't had some bodily difficulty? Where's the pure devotee who didn't leave his body? Right? I mean, look at Jagannath Das Babaji. He was 125 years old. And he was basically disabled. He had to be carried around in a basket. So you may say, oh, why is Krishna punishing this devotee? Because he's being carried around in a basket. But you're looking at these things externally. The devotee is always with Krishna, and a devotee is always in ecstasy, even if he's experiencing these physical difficulties. Then he just takes them as a challenge.
It doesn't affect them as much as normal materialistic people.
No, he takes them as a challenge.
Because his focus is something else.
Well, he takes them as a challenge. A devotee doesn't, real devotee doesn't see problems. He sees opportunities and challenges. Like a Kshatriya. It's not a problem. It's a challenge. So if we see things as problems, that's the wrong mindset. Krishna's sending a challenge to us so we can further refine our devotional service.
Trying to teach us something, trying to tell us something.
What's that?
Trying to tell us something or trying to teach us something.
Well, trying to
through that
teach us or
experience.
trying to help us refine our service by surrendering more. A challenge. Or glorifying a devotee. Like Prabhupada was asked, one time Prabhupada was asked, why does a devotee have to go through so much difficulty? And Prabhupada said, without difficulty, where's the chance for a glorious victory? It's just like if you have a, let's say a rugby team, forgive me, the All Blacks. So let's say you have the All Blacks, and then they just challenge a grade school team. Like some team here. Like 10-year-old boys fighting the All Blacks. What's so great about that, Nobody's going to watch that and say, joy, they're wonderful, You want to have them facing, the Fijis? Flying Fijis? No, they're no good. The who?
South Africa.
South Africa.
South Africa. What's the name of their team?
Springboks.
The Speedbox?
No, Springboks.
Steambox. Springboks.
It's animal.
Anyway, but that's why people watch. It's glorious. No, it's not glorious. But anyway, it's nonsense. But anyway, that's what people watch because it's glorious. The battle occurred, etc. Can you imagine how boring the Mahabharata would be if Duryodhana surrendered? Duryodhana said, yes, Krishna, I've seen your universal form. I surrendered. I'm your devotee. please take me to your lotus feet. You know. So you need some challenge. I mean, Prabhupada, look at Prabhupada's life. There's a challenge. His godbrothers were opposed to him. His wife was opposed to him. His business went bankrupt. He had heart attacks. Wow. And he and he had no money. And he persevered. I mean, that's glorious. So Krishna's glorifying his devotee. And the devotee takes it like that too. A real devotee doesn't get depressed. You know, why is Krishna doing this to me? You know, I've served him for so many years, and look what I get for it, just an old body. Is that, you know, been a sannyas for so many years. What do I get from it? There's some old, grumpy body. You know, one disciple said, actually, he said to me yesterday, he said, Gurudev, is there anything you want that we can get for you? I said, yes, a youthful body. He said, can't do that. Money can't buy that. So, no, but we just take it as a challenge. And I just take it as a challenge, whatever difficulty Krishna puts in front of me. And I'm sure, let's take Bhaktitirtha Maharaj. Look at how he passed away. I mean, let's take that example. You know, melanoma cancer was from the foot. And then they cut off his foot, and it just metastasized, went all over the body. And I mentioned yesterday that when I last saw him, I wanted to give him a little hug. He says, you can't do that because it'll break the chest bones, break the ribs, because the cancer's actually eating its way into there. And he utilized that to show us how to leave the body in a very heroic way. And he was positive the whole way, the whole time. I mean, he used that. And so you can say, oh, it's very inauspicious. But I would say it's Krishna's arrangement. It's auspicious, not a token reaction. It's an auspicious way that he left the body. Parikshit Maharaj being cursed to die in 7 days. Is that inauspicious? No, it's auspicious. So whatever happens to a devotee is arranged by Krishna, and it's always auspicious, although others may not appreciate it. And sometimes the devotee, sometimes goes through a period. He may go through a period of, why are you doing this to me, Krishna? Like even in the Bible you have, my Lord, why hast thou forsaken me? You know that statement Jesus Christ said. So a devotee may just wonder, what's going on here? Why is Krishna doing this? And then he may understand a few years later. That's called retrospect. It means looking back. So sometimes we go through things. I mean, I've seen in my own life, I go through things sometimes that are really traumatic. And then I understand about 5 years later, wow, that was good. I went through that. I remember one thing that was really traumatic for me. The most traumatic thing is when people turn against you who you love. You're trying to help disciples and they just somehow or other. It can be very traumatic being a guru. I mean, there's some fringe benefits, but they don't balance out the trauma. So I remember one instance, which I'm not going to give the details of, and I just like, oh my God, So I remember it was so traumatic. And I just think, my mind was disturbed, and I just like, let me go for a walk. So I started walking long distances then and chanting more japa and taking more shelter in the holy names. I mean, I would go for like 5 hour, 6 hour walks during the day because it's just when you're subjected to some really traumatic thing, the mind really gets wild, just like, you can't believe people are attacking you, or someone's attacking you. And then, so I'd go for 5-hour japa walks and get more into the holy names and started to exercise more. That actually was the cause of my beginning to exercise, trauma. And now I see it's because of that, first of all, I'm healthier physically, and second of all, I have more taste for the holy name and took shelter in Krishna's name, because I just came to the realization the name is, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, other than myself, the name, that's the only friend in this world. I just Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Yashaham Anugranami Harishyay Tadanam Shanai. For those who I especially favor, I do take things away, because Krishna doesn't want us to remain rotting in this world. He's very kind. Why should we rot? Isn't it? If everything goes well, it doesn't really help one advance too much in devotional service. Like if you get, and the weather's perfect here, like we mentioned Hawaii the other day. Here's nice. You got mixed weather. It's too cold sometimes, too hot other times, and the house prices are too high. Imagine, everything was cheap. You could buy a house for, let's say, $100,000, which you probably could have bought 50 years ago. So, and cheap, and then you have an easy life. You don't have to work so hard. You can just come home and watch TV. What's the use? The struggle is good, isn't it? Therefore, Queen Kunti says, "Tatra tatra Jagat Guru." Again and again, send these difficulties. Of course, Prabhupada said we don't pray like that, because Prabhupada said the material world is miserable enough as it is. So don't pray for more difficulties. I pray the opposite. Krishna, don't send, again and again, don't send the difficulties. Send nice people. Actually, the most painful thing is when someone turns against you. Someone who you trust and love, and they just like, oh my God. So that's more painful than a knife in the heart. So anyway, that's the answer. I mean, of course, people who are not Krishna conscious will not understand that, but they're looking for fault anyway. They'll find fault one way or the other in Krishna consciousness. Oh, this person died because he didn't worship Durga, didn't worship the demigods. You get that a lot in Fiji. This person, you got sick. Why did you get the flu? Because I didn't worship the demigods. No, I got the flu because you sneezed on me, you rascal. Just like, there's one Bhaja Govinda. Bhaja Govinda went to Mayapur and he got basically very sick, pneumonia, and he almost passed. He went to the hospital. He asked, why did Krishna? I said, because you went in the temple room with all those people breathing on you for Mangal Arati every morning, packed solid like that, and all the diseases from all over India came. I said, what do you expect? And I said, because I go to the Mangal Arati at the Samadhi, I don't get sick. So there's practical things too, the body functions in a certain way. You can be the purest devotee in the world. If you jump from a building, you're going to get smashed. People shouldn't think that they simply because they chant Hare Krishna, the laws of material nature are not going to work on them. The law of gravity. Because I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I can just float. There's reasons you get sick. I mean, Prabhupada, was like, if you read these final pastimes, we've been hearing them, Prabhupada was thinking about different medicines. He, Ayurveda, Makara Dwaja, right, he was talking about. And he didn't say, at the end he said just chant Hare Krishna, obviously because he was planning to leave the body. But when he was looking for some cure, he was going into other things. He wasn't just going to mystical things like that. So we have to be practical. The material energy functions in a certain way. Isn't it? Just like the other day I was sitting on a swing and they didn't put the chains the right way. And the swing... It didn't hurt me. It was fun. But I'm just saying, because, it's not that it, was Krishna's arrangement or something like that. I can't think, oh, Krishna arranged this and teach me a lesson. Don't swing anymore. You can't mystify everything that happens to you. It was because those rascals didn't attach the chains properly. Because the Chandra didn't attach the chain properly. I'm not going to go blaming Krishna and say, oh, there's a token reaction for my past sinful activities.
Carelessness.
This carelessness, that's all. If you don't put a seatbelt on, it's your fault. Okay, I think we have to end because a lot of things to do today. Okay, all glory is to His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.